So, it's a perfect day to talk about enlightenment. I'm going to make this subject very simple because a lot of people make it too complicated. Now, before we move into enlightenment, I do see some new faces here. I think Vijay probably told you my name is Mohini. I've been studying with Dr. Pillai for 18 years now. And Dr. Pillai is a great saint from South India who is bringing ancient practices and technologies from his tradition to the first time to the rest of the world. He's from the Tamil Siddha tradition. And the Tamil Siddhas have been a very reclusive group of saints who have developed a very refined technology for transforming the body, mind, and soul. But they never left even Tamil Nadu in India. So Dr. Pillai is the first of his tradition to leave India and much less bring all this knowledge to the West. And he's been doing so for the past 20 years. I was fortunate to meet him at the time when he only had 5 students. And he chose me to be the one that would work in order to take him to the world. And that's been a really great blessing on my part. And I can tell you that these techniques work. I have seen so many hundreds of thousands of people, and Wayne Dyer, no less, has used these techniques and brought them to millions of people. And the results come. But the results come when you use the techniques. That's the one thing, is that it's by practice of the techniques that you get the results. So we call this body of knowledge now mind science because Dr. Pillai is bringing together a merger of spirituality and science. And in fact, when he lectures himself, he will explain at length how quantum physics actually completely supports spirituality, and that quantum physics itself is a spiritual discipline. And Einstein was a great spiritualist, as other scientists were. So Dr. Pillai is a very modern-day guru. He believes that life should be 200%, 100% material, 100% spiritual, that religion and spirituality go hand in hand, money and God go hand in hand, and that most importantly, enlightenment is not about renouncing the world, but enlightenment is about gaining true mastery over every aspect of the world and then evolving yourself to have the power of God. So let's start with a simple definition of enlightenment, and that is simply the human becoming divine. Now, what exactly does this mean? The human nature is limited, has a material body, and an ignorant mind. This is just the human condition. We all know what it's like to experience limitations in this life. Many of us wish that things were different around us. Many of you have been using Dr. Pillai's practices in order to change your life, but you came into this birth in order to understand the limitations on this earth plane. The material body, we all know what it causes: disease, aging, pain, death. It's not an acceptable reality. Dr. Pillai does not accept it, and he's giving a permanent solution. The ignorant mind. The nature of the mind is literally like a bird trapped in a room trying to look for an exit. It flies here and there, bouncing off the walls, trying to understand what is the nature of reality. So this model is not a working model. It's one that we know very well, but it's better to move to the divine model. The divine is unlimited, has a light body, and has divine intelligence. It's a big task to think of ourselves as becoming God. So we could begin to think of ourselves as becoming angels. Angels are not limited by time or space. Angels do have a light body. That's very common. Many people have seen angels. And angels have a divine intelligence which is totally unlimited and knows everything. And this is really the destiny of the human race. We can choose to move from the human to the divine with the practices that Dr. Pillai is giving. And the good news is, since we entered the golden age from the Tamil New Year back in mid-April, now we have great planetary support and light showering down from the earth plane, which is helping us to make this transition in a much more easy and effortless way than before. And as I'll speak about later, Dr. Pillai is actually evolving a path which will be total ecstasy. Instead of struggling to move from the human to the divine, every moment should be a moment of pure ecstasy and bliss. And moving to a divine model where we know everything, we can do everything, and we're pure unconditional love for people all over the world. Now, a few other aspects of enlightenment I'd like to go through quickly. The human condition is conditioned by 3 states. One is ego, 2, karma, and 3, Maya. Ego is our stuck, rigid, limited identity. Karma, our past desires create our present and future. In Maya, we believe that this illusion, which is the world, is a reality. So the process of enlightenment is to purify these 3 states of the human condition. Ego, karma, and Maya are responsible for all suffering in our lives. For ego, we know that experience. The ego identity literally creates a box around us. My name is John. I am a lawyer. I have the social status of a lawyer. I have the financial status of a lawyer. I do and think and act like lawyers do and think and act. That's our life. We really typify ourselves by an identity which is usually related to our career or some other limiting identity that we have. Now, because of this ego identity, which is extremely entrenched, it's very hard to convince John, who's a lawyer, that he could become anything else in life, and certainly not God. So we all have that experience. You've probably felt from an early age that you wanted to do such and such in your career, or you wanted to have 5 children, or whatever you're doing now. You've been wanting to do that for some time. The problem with that is that that creates a total block towards opening our awareness to the fact that our identity is God. And as many times as I say that, or you hear that, or say it to yourself that you are God, that's almost impossible to conceive of. And why? Because we have this extremely rigid, limited, stuck ego. So the ego has to be diffused. How do we do that? We do that, number one, through meditation. And then number two, luckily we have the grace of certain vortexes that exist on this planet in order to remove the ego. And many of you are coming with us to India. We're going June 17th through 19th. One of the vortexes that we are going to, the great mountain, Arunachala, is the number one place on the earth in order to go to diffuse your ego. Just by gazing at this mountain, and I've known people that when we take them to this mountain, they will stay up all night gazing at the mountain from their window. Or by walking around the mountain, by making a holy pilgrimage walk, the ego can be significantly reduced. And this is a divine technology that is otherwise totally impossible. We all know what it's like to have this ego that tells us every day that we are only such and such and we can only do such and such. So removing the ego happens through meditation, where we can leave this limited ego identity and move into a divine realm where we become everything and we know everything. And when we go to these vortexes, we can joyfully shed this ego and move easily into an identity that we are divine.